Hello, I'm Vinzer Flinn, and welcome back to the Book of Flinn, where Reigna, Flynn, and I are rewatching Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Star Wars The Clone Wars and sort of reviewing them, but mostly riffing them. Here she is, the person who just suggested I introduce her as Inspector Gadget. It's Reigna Flynn.
Here I am.
I had something pretty boring I was going to say until you said that, so thanks.
Well, I aim to please.
Well, what's next?
Opening witty banter. Insert opening witty banter here.
So, Greg Davies, you want a bit of banter then, do you? Let's have a bit of banter. You want to talk about your armor, I bet.
Yeah, I just want to update everybody. It's so pretty.
It really is. She's done a hell of a job.
I definitely went into an ADHD spiral yesterday, and I sanded and painted for it was like 10 a.m. to like 2:30 a.m. So okay, so season 2, episode 10, The Deserter. The quote is, "It is the quest for honor that makes one honorable." Therefore, my prediction is that this is an epic story about two fearless B1 droids, Harry and Marv, on an adventure to join the Republic, only to have Marv get his head punched off at the last second.
Well, as predictions go.
Wasn't a bad one. Down on Salukami, not Salami, Grievous is making a game plan to hide from Kenobi, while Kenobi is planning on heading to the landing ship to try to find him. And Grievous is trying to contact the fleet, and Harry's like, the transponder is destroyed, and only one escape pod survived. Grievous is like, okay, let's head to that escape pod to see if their transponder is working. Now find me some transportation.
Yeah, like there's just cars lying around.
Yeah. Hey, go be a deer and go get me a tank. At the Republic search party, I swear it's not on purpose, they find Grievous's ship, but there's no sign of Grievous. He's already pieced out. Speaking of Grievous, he's riding a space rhino. Found one.
I can't believe they found anything.
And then they're surrounded by the whiniest B1 droid parade I have ever heard.
Oh, they sounded like undead.
I listened to it on repeat to try to catch some of the things. One of them was like,
Batteries.
I can't go on.
I need a 9-volt.
Power low. I need to shut down. The one that got me was, I can't go on.
I don't think that guy's battery was down. He was just demoralized.
Grievous is surprised that droids that run on power are running out of power.
I get being an impatient megalomaniacal villain, but if they drop dead from power loss, how are they going to help you, smart guy?
Harry, one of the B1 bingo droids, trying his luck, tells Grievous that they wouldn't be so low if they had been allowed to ride on the space rhino. He gets cut in half for his efforts. I rate this droid death 5 out of 10 because it wasn't a head punching. And also 5 out of 10 because he's split. He's like, any more complaints? And everybody's like, no, it's Roger. It's fine, it's Roger.
They're all the old man memes. I'll just die, I guess.
And a bunch of them are like suddenly super peppy with energy. And I'm like, do droids get adrenaline rushes? This seems strange.
They're tapping the reserve power.
They're like, oh, that's the battery to stop my bladder. Guess I'll just use that to live. Over at the crash site, Kenobi tells Bobasaurus Rex, aka Commander Rex, to take Jesse, who is a blue-white trooper with a circular pattern on the forehead of the helmet. Notice how I wrote "of the helmet." We'll come back to that later. Hardcase, who has some weird blue striping.
That symbol is an early version of the Imperial cogwheel.
Ugh, interesting. Blue striping over armor. And Kix, who has like a blue-white geometric look going on. They're going to go search the wetlands while Cody Kenobi and... Someone who I'll come back around to follows trails from the crash site. And I'm like, did they just say Cryus?
I heard that too. Cryus Flynn, what have you been up to?
Yeah, and they never show him on camera. So I'm like,
Oh, Mr. Stealth who can walk through walls? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, Cryus.
Cryus is sneaking around the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
He's probably like 9.
Kenobi instructs B-Rex, Bobasaurus Rex, if he gets a visual on Grievous to contact him before engaging.
No, keep him in the dark. Don't tell your general what you see.
Nope, just don't let anybody know. I guess he's enforcing that because he's used to working with Anakin Skywalker, aka Gloomwalker.
That's fair, but by now they should know that the clones, especially guys like Cody and Rex, they're super dependable, and they'll carry out their orders. They don't need to be told to put their pants on. They know what they're doing.
Kenobi and Cody compliment Rex's intellect and his ability to think on his feet as he's getting onto the swoop bike. When he took off, I was almost ready for him to either stall out or run into something.
Something to take the shine off.
So I've been watching a lot of droid hijinks, and I just immediately try to translate it onto the troopers. And Kenobi's team find a droid in a crashed escape pod. I'm like, Marv, is it you? With Team Bobasaurus Rex, they're searching the wetlands, and in the distance, who I thought were 2 B1 snipers are putting Rex in crosshairs. And I wasn't worried because I was like, oh, it's B1s. And then all of a sudden, I realized it wasn't a B1. It's a commando droid. And suddenly I was very nervous. Was it supposed to look like a B1 droid in the beginning and then you zoom out to see commando droids? Because I definitely didn't look back to see if that should have been really obvious. I just went, oh no.
Yeah, I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but there was definitely a moment of, a couple inches up and Rex was out of the Clone Wars for good. So that's the first time I can remember, Rex being in mortal danger. I mean, besides Anakin force throwing him off cliffs and such, but...
Rex gets swept off of his bike with a direct hit to the chest, and 2 of his men make short work of the sharpshooters, and 1 doubles back for Rex. At Team Obi-Wan, they're working on Marv, and they discovered that he crashed, but because he was avoiding another pod. So they're going to go search for the pod that this one avoided, thinking that Grievous would do the same, I guess. Rex is getting his armor removed, and I'm like, wow, I really hope he showers.
Oh man,
How long
no way.
have these guys been in their armor?
Yeah, it's like old hockey gear, I bet. Even at this point.
There's like suction sounds. As
oh, why'd you have to do that? No. I'll turn this whole podcast around. Blech.
We see Kix, one of the troopers, with his helmet off, and he's got a really cool tattoo on the side. And I had to be really careful for spoilers, but I had to look up what it meant, because I was like, is that a code? And do you know what it means on the side of his? I was wondering if that's just common knowledge, and
I didn't quite catch it.
A good droid is a dead one.
Oh, well, yeah, that's... I imagine that's a pretty popular sentiment in the Grand Army of the Republic.
Jesse realizes that they must be on a farm due to the really adorable livestock nearby. These like little elephant horses. I love them.
Yeah, they look kind of like Eopes from Tatooine. I think they're sort of like one of those common races you see in a lot of planets, or just like cows, I guess.
Yeah, they have Rex on a side-along stretcher on the swoop bike. I don't see any sort of like seatbelts or anything to hold him in.
No
so
more
when they
questions.
break, does he just slide off or?
The magic Star Wars tech. I mean, it would make sense that it's a military speeder, so they would have probably a capability to carry a trooper out. But how it works, who the fuck knows?
Yeah, just no swoop.
Repulsor lift, something.
No. Yeah, just something. They're greeted by a very friendly pink Twi'lek with a shotgun.
Ooh la la.
And Jesse's like, we're friendly, takes off his helmet. His head has the same tattoo. In the barn, Rex comes to and he gets caught up. He's got a lot of nerve damage in one of his arms and he can't use it. So naturally, having a through and through and basically a useless arm, he's like, all right, patch me up, let's get on with it.
Honestly, I'd take a one-armed Rex over two-armed just about anybody else.
It's true, especially Skywalker, because of his attitude.
Technically, he's only got one arm.
Stop that. Oh. Wow, I really put them on level playing field, didn't I? Rex is like, it's just a flesh wound. And Jesse pulls medical rank and shuts Rex down, and he's like, yeah, all right.
Jesse without his helmet on, or was it Kix? Whoever the doctor was, had one of those clones had Gilderoy Lockhart's fucking hair, man. Like, it was blonde.
Twi'lek woman who we learned is named Sue, and I'm like, that's the most basic name in the Star Wars world ever.
I bet if we looked it up, it'd be like SOO or something like that.
It is SUU.
Close enough.
Exactly. Brings them some food, and then the kids come in, and the mom's like, I told you not to come in. And she's like, I couldn't help it, Mom, it got away. And I was like, I have seen that kid trick played so many times. Oh, it just accidentally ended up in this room. This room you're not supposed to be in? Yeah, whoops.
I'm like, if anything happens to these cute little Twi'lek kids, I swear to God.
This show loves Twi'lek children.
Likes putting them in danger, apparently.
I hate it. The little Twi'lek and Rex have a staring contest, and then she's like, you look like my daddy. And I went, uh-oh.
Yeah, here we go.
Found him. I was like, found him. And then it was a very shocking twist that this is actually a clone-centric story, because you're like, I don't know where this is going. Is it going to be Grievous again? But it's a clone-centric story, and it really becomes apparent as soon as she says that line. I'm like, the troopers don't even react. They're just like, well, anyways, let's continue the search. Not one of the troopers did a double take at that. They all think that no one would ever desert.
Yeah, this early on, it doesn't seem to be a thing, but it's sort of the first. It's sort of the first instance where we start thinking about what any clones that might disagree, that actually do become willful enough to not take part in the war, and the idea of what they would do instead of fighting it out. This is one of those first cases of that. And I love these kinds of stories when the clones, the circumstances create the clone sometimes, and this guy's backstory it took him to a very different place. And I like these kinds of stories.
Oh yeah, for sure, me too. With Obi-Wan, they located the other pod, and there's no sign of Grievous. They figure that he must be on his way to a different escape pod. I feel like a lot of their thoughts were very just plot-driven and didn't really make a lot of logical sense. Like, they didn't connect the dots. They just said, oh, well, they must be going here.
Yeah, while this was a good sort of another wartime on-the-ground story with Grievous, the Grievous chasing storyline definitely faded into the background. The B-plot kind of became the A-plot in this. And they are linked together. I thought maybe we could have done this story without a two-parter, but it was still connected, so I didn't have a big problem with it.
Yeah. Jesse updates Obi-Wan, and they plan to meet at the last escape pod. Over on the farm, the adorable space elephant horses wake up Rex by licking his face. And I was like, what is the point of this scene? But then I thought, these elephant horses are really familiar with him and seem to recognize him. And I think it was just another way to, like, plant that seed if they didn't pick it up with the little girl dropping the very obvious line. Because before that, I was like, I don't understand what this whole scene was even about.
That's a good point. Good observation there. Easy to miss.
Yeah, because they almost seemed insulted, and he's like, no, get away. And they're like, no, okay.
Right.
And I was just like, baby, come here.
It'd be like if a clone of me came in and was mean to the cats, and they'd be like, what's happening?
Oh my gosh, Willow would be so confused.
I would kill my clone.
It's true. You not nice to the cat, you got to go.
You're defective.
Over at the General Grievous Pot Pride Parade, the droids are responding really slowly.
Like old Walkmans grinding down their batteries, eh?
They sound like those dying easy buttons we used to get at Staples every once in a while.
You ever see that Simpsons where they're on the raft and Homer's Walkman's winding down and he's listening to like the sugar, sugar, da 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 da, and it's like, oh, honey, honey. It's like slowing right down. That's what it reminded me of.
It's very much that. I'm surprised he still has as many droids in his parade as he does.
Seriously.
Because they were all about to die. Not just their heads being removed, I mean, like, losing battery life. Grievous gets mad at the droids, and he's like, I hope you're interpreting the coordinates correctly. Read them yourself! Instead of these droids who are dying around you. Grievous, man, I really like you, but you're not being very smart right now.
He's a good monster to turn loose on the bad guys, but he seemed kind of helpless, when he suddenly, a car breaks down, he's like, and he's abusing all the helps. It's a weird side to see of him.
Bold of Grievous to put faith in the navigation of a bingo droid, let alone one with low power.
Yeah.
Anyways, that droid goes, oh no, and then dies. And the other droid like picks it up and he's like, well, anyways, yep, they're one click out, and then he dies. Yep.
Sorry that scared anybody.
Sorry if you're having flashbacks right now. In the barn, we see a hand grab a staff of some sort. It's like a cattle prod.
That is one hellacious looking fucking pitchfork, let me tell you.
That looks like something Triton would use, okay? Rex gets woken up by his own type of spidey sense, but he pretends to feign asleep while reaching for his blaster. And I think that the spidey sense is not just because they're enhanced with combat capabilities, but I think it's because game's recognizing game here. Like, on some level, I think the clones recognize each other.
That's his latent Mandalorian DNA paranoia. Who's that? Who's there?
The stranger disarms Rex with one motion and is suddenly surprised to see one of his own brethren in his barn. Like, did his wife not tell him that she had an old injured man in the barn? Like, why did he react like this if he wasn't expecting a clone?
Imagine his wife talking, oh, there's a handsome fellow in the barn that we saved. Oh, shit. Oh, he just looks like me. Okay.
Yeah, there's an injured guy in the barn. Okay, cool. I'm going to go poke him with a cattle prod. Be right back.
Like, well, if he looks like me, he's got to go. He's not stealing my wife.
As soon as they start talking to each other, like, and Rex is going off about loyalty and duty, and you took an oath, and Cut is like, yeah, to my family. And I'm like, boom, okay, we're talking about this. This is where this conversation's happening.
Rex is so by the book here. He's almost sounds like not the bad guy, but the authoritarian military guy he doesn't have any heart, right? But yeah, Rex is so by the book here.
It's kind of the same problem that I had with him in the episode with the 4 clone troopers, where one of them, the other clone-centric story that we had last season, where one kind of turned against the others, and it was kind of like, oh, you guys aren't even going to grieve these guys? No? Okay. It's like they didn't care. So I feel like this is very much that. This stranger's family comes in with Yoda-like timing, as they're in the middle of an argument, and then all of a sudden the mom's like, hey, can we come in? And the kids are all like running in and stuff. And I'm like, this is a really sweet scene. Like, they drew a picture for him and just it was just so
they're
cute.
nauseatingly cute.
I know, I loved it. I didn't even mind. And Cut's like, he introduces himself as Cut LaQuain. Cut LaQuain? Yes, that's the name I got. And he's like, hey, what's your number? And Rex is like, I have a name too, believe it or not. And I'm like, ooh, here we go. His children refuse to allow Uncle Rex to stay in the barn, so we have the cutest family sitcom ever being pitched. Twin bros and a Twi'lek.
My 2 clone dads this fall on Disney Plus.
Cut is talking to Rex about the fact that he has a name. I'm surprised this conversation and the conversations in the next couple of scenes happen in front of the children. I thought that it was a very grown-up conversation to have in front of the children, with a lot of different aspects that they might be really confused on. Like, I just don't know. I originally thought that Cut was a less diluted Jango Fett than Rex because of the way that they approached their thought process originally, because Rex seemed very like, by the book, this is the regulations, whereas Cut is a bit more independent thinker. But as the scene went on, I realized that they probably are on the same playing field. Like, they have the same amount of Jango in them. It's just the way that they process the information and their own life experiences really altered that training and that programming. Because Rex goes, I'm part of the most pivotal point in the history of the Republic. And that he goes on to talk about how he truly believes in the cause that he's fighting for, which means he's obviously given this some thought, because he doesn't say no when Cut asks him if he's ever really thought about it. He just kind of says, this is what I have. This is my family. This is what I've chosen.
I still feel Rex is just a propaganda victim at this point. That was a the thing about the clones' level of independence in the old Republic Commando books, and the more independent the troopers had to be, like the shinies, the basic troopers, they were bred. Janko was quite diluted, whereas you started getting up guys like Rex, field commanders, and then the commandos, who we'll be meeting some of those guys later, they were even less diluted. And there was these guys, the Null Arcs, they were like the first ones, and they were fiercely dependent, and a Mandalorian ended up adopting them, but they were too independent to control. Like, they would be like, do this, and they're like, fuck you. Like, when Order 66 came along, they had no problem denying it.
Cut says to the children at some point, you can do anything you want to with your life. And I don't really understand Rex's facial expression here. Was he considering what Cut was saying? Was he confused? Is he just angry at Cut for the audacity? And this is when I realized emotions are hard enough on real people faces, let alone animated faces. So, what do you think Rex was thinking? Do you think he was kind of processing this, or what?
I think it probably got him thinking about a lot of things. I do believe that he feels that his home is with Anakin and all those guys, and I believe absolutely that military brotherhood. I do believe he feels that. I feel like he's been pointed in the right direction by his creators and the propaganda, and he's been taught this, that, and that, and he buys into it. But now this is I'm not saying that he's wrong in anything how he feels, but he's seen, I don't know, a wider galaxy where, what if I wasn't a trooper, what would I be doing? And that's just the first bit of that is now crossing his mind. That's what I thought.
Yeah, because just up to this point he's indoctrinated. He hasn't seen anything else.
It's very true.
And something tells me this doesn't happen that often, so he's like one of the first ones to defect that he knows about, I guess. Mm-hmm. Especially where they don't keep track of the loss of life. Like, it would be so easy for a bunch of troopers just be like, well, they left us for dead. Honestly, and just go off and live a life.
Yeah, like it must be super easy for just a standard clone to slip through the cracks after a big battle. It's not like they're going to account for everybody, right? So,
which really just further proves my point that somehow the good guys are fighting the war the wrong way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Speaking of which, at the search party, Team Rex sans Rex have a visual on Grievous. Grievous is reaching the escape pod, and he's like, do you guys got your transmitter working? And the droid's like, I don't know, haven't tested it yet. And then he just gets thrown against a wall.
Yeah, he was sassy.
Stupid battle droids. And this is when I realized that this episode is really just to highlight what happens when Grievous runs out of his space weed and he has to deal with all these droids sober.
Oh, no chill. No chill at all.
Despite that line from Grievous, a bingo droid pops up in the background and he's genuinely shocked and happy to see him. And I'm like, is this your first day? Have you been around this guy a lot?
Did you just come online? We need to defrag this guy. Update him.
And this is where I go, save the bingo droids from the separatists. These guys deserve better. Put the M&M droids on the front lines. Justice for bingos.
You're going to become like an advocate for B1 droids now, aren't you? Just, like Hermione with the house elves.
Uh-huh. SPE bingo. Absolutely.
Join Spingo today.
Once the bingo droid's like, sir, you're alive. Grievous is like, get in there and just signal the fleet. I need someone to rescue me. And the droid, who is smartly still out of Grievous's arm's reach, is like, okay, cool, but we've got a bunch of people approaching on either side. We cut over to the farm where Cut is playing a holo game with what I thought was going to be one of his kids, but nope, Bulbasaurus Rex.
This holo game is Dejeric, which is recurred in Star Wars a bunch of times, and even the first movie where Chewie was playing it with, let the Wookiee win, that sort of thing. It's used to be able to collect the pieces of it and assemble one in galaxies. But yeah, this is just a very common sort of holographic chess game in Star Wars, Dejeric.
That's cool.
Each one of those little monsters has a name and is a creature in the Star Wars, monster manual, so to speak.
Oh, the things you learn. I love how much world building. I have to appreciate Star Wars' level of world building that it's done. It's really just its own entire universe. Cut tells Rex that he left after the first Battle of Geonosis. His ship was caught between two gunships and crashed, and the Separatists were just gunning down all the survivors, so he fled. They're talking about loyalty and all that stuff, and Cut brings up that everyone he was loyal to was gone. He had no meaning to his life, and with the loyalty ties cut and those blinders off, he was able to see the war for what it was. It made no sense, and he was essentially just used as cannon fodder, and nobody really cared.
Yeah, shaped by the circumstances, and his backstory is completely sympathetic, and I buy why he left.
Yep, all the motivations make sense. Like, he earned this for sure.
Fuck, yes.
Cut asks Rex if he understands where Cut's coming from, and Rex's answer is very diplomatic. He comments about how he's lost a lot of people and that feels like family, and then he just kind of trails off.
Yeah, he's thinking. See?
The kids ask to go outside to play, and this forces me to ask, what time is it? Shouldn't you be going to bed?
It's like full dark outside and there's wolves. Go to bed.
It's been dark for a long time. Like, we've managed to have a cute elephant licking someone's face. We've had a standoff. We've had an entire meal. We've had a full game of the name Jederick. Okay, cool. And and then we have this talk, and I'm like, what? Kids, go to bed. What are you, like 4?
Maybe the nights are like 30 hours long on this planet or something.
So I went and looked it up because I'm that person.
Excellent. What did you find out?
I'm that person. I like research. They have a 26-hour day, so yeah, go to bed.
Yeah, that's
Basically, what we take away from this scene is at the end of the day, Cut is a loyal man. He just found new loyalties. And I can't fault that at all, honestly. Speaking of loyalties, Team Grievous, droid with a rocket launcher pops up out of nowhere. That was it. That's all I had. I was just like, ooh, badass bingo droid. Never thought I'd see it. And actually hit something. Like, he takes out one of those big walker assister droids. Once we have this big battle, we cut to a farm and with the children playing outside, and I'm like, no, I don't like cutting from a battle to children playing outside.
Yeah, like a fucking cornfield.
Yeah, no good. And then the kids come across another escape pod. My immediate instinct, run. Absolutely just run. And it please just be the bingo droids. As soon as they started their creepy alignments, though, when they all started turning on, I was like, it's not the bingo droids. Run!
And a whole lot of commandos.
Run back to the house that you definitely were not in view of. Children. We get to see through the binoculars that Cut's using, because the kids run back to the house. The commando droids aren't right. They looked like zombies.
Yeah, it was Night of the Living Droids.
The injured ones were like sparking and lumbering, but I didn't understand why the fully functional ones also seemed to be lumbering.
I just wanted to fit in.
It was very off-putting.
Yeah, they were super
Maybe
creepy.
the zombie ones would take out the good ones if they showed any sign of... Cut tells Rex to hang back because he's going to be the last line of defense for the family. And then Cut has a montage of suiting up, which I guess is a good reason to have all those commando droids lumbering rather than walking at their normal pace, because how long did it take him to suit up?
Oh yeah, moving at the speed of plot like on Voltron forms.
Cut has a badass battle sequence, and he takes out a whole bunch of them. He takes out one that has him by the neck, gives him a lot of headshots, a lot of really good, satisfying headshots. This is a good episode if you like those. At the escape pod battle, Grievous's shuttle is arriving amidst a battle, and Obi-Wan's like, keep shooting at it. The droids in the ship are surprised to be shot at during a battle.
Our battle droids, what's the deal with the battle?
So Harry and Marv have clearly been re-downloaded already.
Yeah, they got sent right back in. Get back down there and pick up Grievous. Fuck.
Why are they shooting at us? Wow. Kenobi leaps into the fray and almost gets the drop on Grievous, but Grievous's biggest fan warns him in the nick of time.
Yeah, Obi-Wan was like force diving straight at his back. He was on the offensive. What is it? Jedi were supposed to use force for knowledge and defense. Kenobi's like, fuck that, force leap.
At the farm, we cut to cutting down the droids.
Oh, you were just waiting for that.
It just flowed out of me like the force. He hears them in the basement, and 4 climb out, and I'm like, new nightmare unlocked. I never want a basement. F this, I'm done. They open up directly into his living room, and the shoosting ensues. And the family in the floor above, because apparently this is just one step from a shack, is like pew-pewing through the floors, like, go take the children away.
Run into the cornfield or some shit.
The shootout collapses part of the ceiling, trapping Cut under the rubble, and he yells out to Rex that they're coming for him. And Cut frees himself, takes out 2 droids with the same amount of drywall, takes out another 2. It looks like things are getting a hold of Cut, though, because one of them grabs him. Except Boba's upstairs. Boba. It's not really Boba. It's Bobasaurus Rex. He takes out one, but then falls through the floor next to Cut, and then Cut's like, thanks for the gun, and just takes out the rest. I kept count of how many I saw actually die on screen, and they only actually took out 11 when they said there was 20. However, there was a cutaway scene, so I am choosing to believe that the way that Cut was blowing through them, he took out those 9 off screen.
I'd buy that.
The rate he was taking them out, I'd believe it. Yeah.
Honestly, with how good a fighter he was, he might have been like a commando. Like he might have lost his 3 brothers, and because he was a commando, and I don't know if they don't really do that in this as opposed to the books, but his level of commando independence might have let him break free.
Yeah, he reminded me of like Die Hard.
Yeah, he was pretty badass. And he was never afraid.
Yeah.
He was like fucking chill the whole time. He just did the job.
Yeah, it's kind of more like, all right, let's go suit up again. Grievous and Obi-Wan are battling it out over by the escape pod, and he sees sees the ship approaching. Grievous is like, don't bother to land, and just starts climbing up like a creepy little spider, and then Batman's to the ship by using like a, insert the word.
Yeah, a grappling hook.
Thank you, grappling hook. He's waving his lightsaber. Till we meet again.
Yeah, he does.
Jedi scum.
He does a real villain. He's just waving his lightsaber. He doesn't use the Force, so I've never really seen him deflect anything unless he was helicoptering. But he's waving it around anyway, and he's like, "Well, we'll meet again, Kenobi." He's like laughing.
He's cackling. Yeah, he's like cackling maniacally. And things I was waiting to happen were the maniacal laughter gets cut off by a coughing fit. And because that happened in the last episode, so no one can make fun of me for assuming that was going to happen. And also, if he's waving his lightsaber around, actually cuts his line and complete with a Looney Tunes fall.
Oh my God, that would have been amazing.
They may have a Jedi cough, but I am wheezy. Ooh.
Grievous was back in his element all of a sudden, like all the tedious slogging across the land and, the boring droids. But now he's doing it as dramatic escape on the line, waving it. Now he's like, I'm back in the swing.
Till we meet again, Obi-Wan. And Obi-Wan is upset. He orders Cody to be like, everybody, intercept. Also, can someone pick me up? On the farm, Sue asks if Rex is going to report her husband because Rex and them are gearing up to leave. Rex says yes at first, and I immediately went on pause and was just like, what do you mean after all of this? And then I hit unpause, and he's like, but I have a memory problem, so I'm probably not going to remember any of this. And I was like, okay, you had me in the first half, Rex. You had me in the first half.
Yeah, Rex proves that once again he's a cool guy. Like a temporary amnesia.
I was surprised. You're a deserter, but not a coward. That's something, I guess.
Maybe Rex just knew. He's like, I can't take this guy in. He'll fucking whoop my ass. He was definitely a commando.
Yeah.
And that Twi'lek wife's she'll fuck me up too. So nope, didn't see it.
Yeah, 100%. He just wakes up and they're standing over his bed. Not the adults, just the children. Cut offers an out for Rex too if he wants it.
Yeah.
But Rex declines and he's like, this is your home and my family is elsewhere. And then we have a very Western style ending with the elephant horseback into the sunset.
Come back, Shane. Come back.
So then the episode fades to black. What did you think?
I like this episode. It was another sort of, like I said, an on-the-ground war story, but it sort of faded into the background in favor of this other story, which is actually even more compelling. So I really liked it. And again, it's one of those first instances where you start to think about clones in terms of than just the mindless soldiers. And I'd always like when they humanize the clones and we see how the circumstances shaped them and how they got their nicknames and all that backstory stuff. I love that clone stuff.
Yeah, I felt like this was a really important episode because at the end of the day, the battles don't really matter if you think about it. I mean, we know how it goes down in the end. We know the big players that make it out. These episodes stand out because it's not about the characters whose fates we already know. It's about these characters here, like the troopers. I guess that's why they call it Clone Wars. But the Campinos. No, that's not right. What's their name?
The ones that created them? The Caminoans? What'd you call them? The
Campinos. It's those candies.
Campino cloners, man. They're right.
So the Caminos programmed them to be loyal to a fault, but I think that was also just part of Django's baseline programming as well. Because I don't know much about him personally. I'm sure there's loads of lore about him out there. But he must have already had this level of loyalty built into him for the Camaros? What is wrong with me? Caminos. But he must have already had the amount of loyalty in him for the Caminos to pick him.
Yeah.
Because they would need to start with a good stock and then just filter out what they don't want, right?
More or less. And he was, according to revised canon, he was a Mandalorian foundling. So he became Mandalorian and he got accepted into the family. So, he was a strong-willed guy, for sure. I mean, he was a bounty hunter out there doing his thing, and he was no one to be fucked with. So he had good warrior genes.
Their loyalty is one of their core foundations, and this kind of explains a lot of the devotion to the troopers that we've seen in the past, like the Luminara's troopers that they painted their armor green in dedication. So that makes me think that maybe Cut lost his general as well in the Battle of Geonosis.
Well, the thing was, they didn't really have generals at the Battle of Geonosis. That was when the clones first got deployed, so they knew they had to obey the Jedi, but they hadn't been organized into, like, Anakin didn't have Rex or anything, no Cody with Kenobi, anything like that yet. So, yeah, but he definitely lost important people to him, so my guess is he lost his commando squad.
Okay, that makes my next part interesting. I thought that they were already paired up with Jedi then, so I actually went and researched the first Battle of Geonosis and looked up the Jedi who perished that day. They had Coleman Trebor, the one who Trevor Leahy, Coleman, a bunch of Padawans, and someone named Sember Vey, and she actually was one who was noted for being in a lot of the battles and the battle attack teams. So I was just like, maybe it was her. She died and he lost his loyalty or something. But
just because Anakin and them didn't have their squad yet, entirely possible they could have had a Jedi and said, all right, you're in command of these guys, go in, and then that team gets fucked over and Jedi dies. So yeah, entirely possible.
So this is what happens when you podcast with somebody who spent 5 years doing nothing but research and now has no research to do. And I was like, I went to research the things.
Oh god, you're gonna become
without the spoilers.
You become a Clone Wars conspiracy theorist now, aren't you?
Well, I mean, you saw me during WandaVision, right? You know what you're in for.
Yeah, it's true. Well, you're gonna get a lot of material to chew over in the next few seasons, that's for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I really like this episode. I always really enjoy the clone-centric episodes. Those ones really stand out to me, like the ones where I sorted all of the clones into their houses. That episode really stood out in the first season to me more than most of them, to be honest.
Yeah, good episode.
Yep. Dun, 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 dun.
Time for Buffy Season 2, Episode 10. What's My Line Part 2? My prediction for this episode is that Kendra is going to be an irritatingly good Slayer, and I give her 50-50 odds of surviving the episode. And maybe her death is going to galvanize Buffy into embracing her Slayer destiny. I actually made a real prediction this episode. We pick right back up where Kendra and Buffy are facing off in Angel's trashed pad. And Kendra insists she's the Slayer. And Buffy, she gets defensive about it, which is kind of funny. The thing she's all bleak about all the time, now she's claiming, that's mine. They decide not to wig out, as they call it, and they do call a truce. Kendra's agreeable to that. She says she was sent by her watcher to kill vampires. I'm not going to try to do her accent because it would be insulting, but just know that I'm digging it.
Nobody really knows what that accent is. There's been a lot of controversy about it. They tried to claim at one point that it was from a really remote area in Jamaica, but then there was people from Jamaica who were like, no. So we're not 100% sure. Sometimes it sounds Irish. Sometimes it sounds Jamaican. What? Yeah.
Yeah, I picked up I didn't make a note of it, but I did notice that, and I was like, oh, that's peculiar.
So I'm going to give her an out, because I figured out a theory. Her watcher is from one place, whether it's Jamaica or Ireland, and she is from the other place, and the accent kind of melded because she was raised in isolation. So
he had a pretty interesting, very non-European name. It had like a Z in it. Like, what was
Zambuto.
Zambuto. Okay, that sounds like African to me, like old cool warrior name or something. So meanwhile, Angel is still stuck in the mesh cage, and I found this very surprising. Like, I assumed he'd bend his way out eventually like Spike and the others did at that vampire bar, and that door was way more heavy duty, but like, he was still in there. And I picture him with his fingers on a little part going, fuck!
He's on slow roast. I'm surprised that the sun is affecting him that bad, considering, sometimes we see them out of the sunlight, but still in the daytime, so I don't know.
Yeah, I have some issues with Angel's power levels throughout this episode, as we will discuss. At the library, Giles knows who Kendra's watcher is, and though they've never met, he's well respected, and Kendra calls Giles Sir and is very respectful. And meanwhile, in the background, Buffy's all slouched and leaning, and it's basically like, oh, what a respectful Slayer, why can't she be more like Kendra, Buffy? And Buffy's already getting a little catty, but yeah, Buffy, she just looks like the total slob who, literally woke up in her boyfriend's bed wearing an old flannel, very 90s. So Willow enters, Kendra gets a little confronting, Buffy says, back off, Pink Ranger, and a nice reminder we're smack in the middle of the 90s here. To her credit, Willow didn't much flinch. She just gave her a look like, who's this bitch? Like, she didn't back off, Good
She's
for Willow.
Things running at her, I guess, by now.
Yeah, Willow's getting some nerves of steel here, despite her innocent girl facade. Total side note at this point, I accidentally hit a button and changed the playback speed, so suddenly everybody sounded as drunk as Jonathan Frakes when they slowed down the audio in Ripley's Believe It or Not.
That happened to you too?
You did that? When did you do that?
I did that when I was watching the Clone Wars episode. I hit, instead of the pause button, I hit the slow down button, and then I think it might have been when Gloomy was talking or something, and Obi-Wan, and everyone just sounded really drunk, and I had to close out and start again.
Yeah, I had to I don't know what button I pushed, but anyway, the show took on a very different vibe. Suddenly sounded like a bunch of drunk guys talking. Oh yeah, vampires exist, buddy. Sure, let's get you home. So Giles explains how they have some civilians on the team to Kendra, which she criticizes and makes it sound like it's very against protocol. And Giles makes it seem, he starts stammering, he makes it seem like Buffy would be sort of fucked without her team, which she would be.
Why should they work in secret? I don't really understand why that needs to happen necessarily.
I assume to keep vampires and stuff from the public eye to stop a panic? I don't know. Side note number 2, why is Willow dressed like Ronald McDonald?
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think. Oh, why? Yikes.
Ketchup and mustard thing going there. Okay, so this is where it gets interesting. There can only be a new Slayer if the old one died, and it really got past everybody, including myself, really, that she did die, so a new Slayer got activated. So Kendra's story gets a little backup here. I'm surprised Buffy didn't lose her powers, and it opens up a very interesting and dangerous loophole, I think, where the forces of good could find ways to kill their slayers, revive them, and essentially create an army of slayers, which is a whole sticky road I'm not going down. I can tell by the look on your face we're going to be dealing with this again later, but I'm just like, let's scientifically kill you and then bring you back, and then we'll create a bunch of slayers.
With what you've learned about the Watchers Council and their need for control and isolation, do you think they'd want an army of super soldier teenagers on their hands?
This is a very valid point. You're right. Earlier, when Kendra came back to the school, they referenced the Slayer's Handbook, which Buffy has apparently never seen. And Giles said it would be useless to her. He said, as soon as I met you, Buffy, I knew this wasn't going to work. But then I was like, why don't you let Willow read it? Let's bulk up the knowledge of the support team. Give it to the hacker girl. Give it to the brain.
She immediately rejected it because that's exactly what he threw up on the counter. That must have been it. The thing that she was looking for in the first episode. He's like, ooh, I know what you've been looking for. And I assumed that the vampire book that he throws down there, because it looks old, like it would be passed on from Slayer to Slayer to Slayer. And then he must have mailed it back to the council going, never mind.
Yeah, never mind. She's doing fine without it.
Because why would they ever need to have more than one copy?
Yeah. That's true. So Kendra's been reading Buffy's book this whole time.
Yeah.
From a writing standpoint, I don't know if that was an accident or intentional, but that really locks in quite nicely.
Yeah.
It's completely unprecedented, says Giles. I'm quite flummoxed. To which Buffy asks, where's the flum?
How have the Watchers dealt with this before? Because this can't be the first time they've had a Slayer that was a high school student. Have they just managed to convince every single Slayer to just abandon and drop their lifestyle, or do they pay off the parents?
Well, interestingly, in this episode, Kendra says her parents gave her to her Watcher, like they were dedicated to the whole cause kind of thing. So yeah, it's funny because Buffy seems like such an outlier from the little I know about Slayers already. It's like they almost trained from birth like Jedi or something. They leave their families kind of thing. So already Buffy seems like the outlier here.
I have that comparison later on as well, yes. This was a really long scene.
So Kendra ain't leaving. All signs point to something big breaking in Sunnydale, and not the first time we've heard such rumblings. So I like how Kendra tried to axe Buffy in the head because she thought she was a vampire. I'm like, okay, she did see her kissing Angel in his vamp face, but for all Kendra knew, Buffy was like a familiar or something, and the whole axe head thing seems either really extreme or just damn good slayering.
Familiars, interesting, like what we do in the shadows. That doesn't really happen in the Buffyverse. I've never really drawn that comparison, but familiars aren't a thing at all.
Interesting. That is interesting because in vampire culture, it happens so often. I mean, from Dracula and Renfield from the very beginning, right?
We'll swing back around to that in a few seasons. There's a moment where you can draw that comparison, I guess.
Angel's name comes up. Kendra has heard of him and calls him a monster, which I feel is probably accurate from her perspective. And Giles, oh no, he's good now. He had a gypsy curse. Right, Angel, who's stuck in a janitor's cage as high noon approaches. Willie, the bartender, he'll always be Mocha Joe to me, opens the door, drags Angel out and drops him through a trapdoor in the sewers. Spike dramatically steps from the shadows, actually pays Willie, which was surprising, then gives him one of these. He gives him a good slap. Gave him one of those as a reminder not to mouth off. So a couple vampire goons drag Mr. Open Shirt and Sexy off, and Mocha Joe asks what they're gonna do, and Spike replies, maybe dinner and a movie. Don't want to rush anything. I've been hurt, Spike's got a good turn of phrase.
Yep.
Meanwhile, back at Buffy's house, Cordelia, who is both a winter and a summer, is trying to get her colors from dead-faced Mr. Fister when she notices one of his demon maggots crawl out on his sleeve.
Demon maggots.
Xander bungles in as he does, and Mr. Fister uses the power of good at the time CGI to turn into a maggot swarm. A question mark. Swarm? Is swarm the word for maggots? I didn't look it up because I don't really want to know. Well, they run into the basement and try to duct tape the bottom of the door to keep these maggots out, which Xander is doing a piss poor job of. Piss poor.
They should have been dead.
Yes.
Never go into construction, Xander.
The vampire slayers, that's plural, arrive and find Angel already gone, and they start to rough up Willie, who lies about where he is, swears on his mother's grave. Kendra wants to return to the Watcher for orders. Like, she's totally by the book, by Buffy's book, I guess.
Step 1. Step 2.
Buffy does not take orders, and then I thought, I put a note, no wonder you died.
Yeah, I had that quote as well.
Okay, Mocha Joe asks them on their way out if they want to do nude modeling with his friend with the camera. And I don't know how old Kendra is, but clearly young. And Buffy is 16 or supposed to be in the show. So what in the actual fuck was that even doing in the show, Mocha Joe? Is this Joss telling on himself again? Like, fuck you, Mocha Joe.
They're minors. Because I know that Kendra has grown up in isolation, but I don't believe that she's older than Buffy.
No, I don't get that impression.
No.
Not really. It was highly inappropriate, and it didn't really come up. I made a note, like, will this come up again later in the show? Were we going to meet Guy with the cameras? Is somehow important story? No, it was just a pervy fucking comment that did not need to be in the show.
Yep.
Fuck you, Mocha Joe. All right, over at the vampire lair, Spike returns with a present for Drusilla, which is Mr. Open Shirt and Sexy Angel.
Yay, more Drusilla voice, because I know how much you love her voice when
you know what?
That.
I must be getting numb to it because I didn't mind it. I didn't pay attention to it so much in this episode, but
yeah, as she gets stronger, because
yeah,
you know that by now, the voice changes a bit. Like it's not as whispery,
yeah.
wispy. That's wisp.
There's a full moon tonight, so that is one of the pieces of the puzzle. So they have all the pieces to restore her. Spike calls her a ripe, wicked plum or something. Yep. Is it a plum? I wasn't sure if it was plum.
Yep.
They start to make up just as poor old Angel's trussed up. He's just sitting there having to watch it.
Yep, like the old days.
And Spike gives Angel to Drusilla to play with, but not to kill, and she calls him a very bad daddy, and I threw up in my mouth a little.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
And then she gave another... This soundboard's going to be abused.
That's never coming off the soundboard.
Excellent.
At school, the Watchers have decided that the Slayers will work together. Giles had a phone conference with the other Watcher, apparently. The fear of Drusilla being restored to full power is starting to sound like she's going to be a big problemo if that happens. Like, she sees this innocent little broken girl already, but I'm like, she's going to be a fucking handful if she gets restored, I can tell. Kendra displays her knowledge of Slayer's things, like the Order of Taraka, even which volume it was in, and is again respectful to Giles. So Giles stops gabbing with Kendra long enough to warn Buffy that Snyder is on the lookout for her and that goddamn career day that's going on in the background. Quote, I suppose she's a cheerleader too.
That cheerleader callback.
Giles goes, oh, she had to leave. Interesting story, that. And I'm like, yeah, see the movie.
And then Buffy's like glaring at him. He's like, oh, well, maybe later. Let's just go get that book.
Giles is so excited to have like a proper Slayer here. He's almost fangirling. It's hilarious.
Yep.
So Buffy's a little jealous, but she floats the idea to Willow about letting Kendra take over the job. Like, what if I bowed out? Because she's obviously good at it. She's dedicated to it. Like, what if I just went and was a cop or something? Meanwhile, in Buffy's basement, the future married couple are stuck arguing over whose fault this is. And I saw it coming. I'm like, here comes the fighting. It's built. And there it is. What will become the biggest secret of season 2, I am sure.
I still remember my shock. And when I was 10, this was a shock. I was too naive to see this coming. And because this was the first time I think I've actually seen this trope on television of the argumentative getting closer. I do enjoy Xander's point earlier in this. He's like, this is Buffy's house. Odds are she'll find us. From Xander. I did enjoy that point.
I have to say I did not hate Xander in this episode, and there's a couple more reasons I will get to, but you know what? He didn't harp on my nerves as badly with the bad jokes and stuff.
Yeah, he was better than last episode for sure.
He was a little more useful this time.
Yeah, that's true.
So Cordelia gets a maggot shower, followed by a hose shower from Xander outside that I felt like went on a little bit too long. I felt like maybe Nicholas Brendan was having a bit of a laugh here, and he was like he wouldn't turn it off. There's like cut, and he's not cutting. It reminded me of in Battlestar when Starbuck turned the hose on Apollo when they were on Cloud 9 and then they were fighting with it. It felt like that was the actors fucking around a bit, but it was good, so they put it in the show. That's what I thought Nicholas Brendan was doing. Back at career day, Buffy says, "Hey, Willow, Seth Green's checking you out over there." And Willow says he's just expressing computer nerd solidarity. But he does come over, and Willow does some great flirting. "Your hair is brown."
Sometimes. My theory of Snyder putting Buffy into law enforcement specifically gets a little bit more weight here because she ends up with two options. I know Cordelia did too, but hear me out. She also got environmental design for her career choices. And the environmental design actually coincided more with her answers because she checked the shrub box. So I still think that this is Snyder's doing, that she's in law enforcement. I would think that it was somebody else, like the Order of Traka, but she got the results from her test before they were hired.
So Seth Green says he's not a computer person, but he tests well. Buffy goes and actually signs up for law enforcement, and the cop does a roll call. Buffy puts her hands up, and the cop pulls her gun and just starts blasting. Anyway, I started blasting.
This scene hits different with the white police officer shooting students in a school.
Buffy actually runs after defending against the first attack, which I thought was weird, like, for her to run. I know she had to get defensive real quick, but, like, it's surprising she didn't go full offense to stop anyone else from getting shot, which does happen. Seth Green, I know it's not his name in the show, but I'm going to keep calling him Seth Green. He dives and saves Willow from a gunshot, and he takes one in the arm. The cop takes a kid hostage, and she got like a punch knife or something. And anyway, I happened to pause it here to take a note, and I paused it where the look on the kid's face is like,
oh no.
I have it saved. It is not a good expression. So the cop gets away. Yeah, like another violent incident at school. The shooting stuff is terrible to watch now. Like it was bad enough in the 90s. Like we had school shootings in the 90s, but now it's just like, man, it hits so different now.
Especially with the police aspect. But this is Jonathan again. But he wasn't even called Jonathan at this point, because we've seen him a couple of times already this season. Because, of course, this is Danny Strong.
Right.
But he was just listed as hostage kid.
All right, a gang reassembles at the library. Now, for those keeping score, that's Giles, Buffy, Willow, Xander, Cordelia, and Kendra.
Gang's all here. I also have a quote from the last season. Was that a demonstration?
Cordelia's still twitching. She's still got the bug heebie-jeebies. It was quite subtle. Her attention wasn't on her, but she's standing in the crowd of people, and you can see she's still twitching from the maggot attack.
Ugh, I would be too.
Xander spots Kendra, and I'm like, fuck, here we go. But Kendra appears kind of shy talking to him. I'm like, is it extreme revulsion and disconnection, or she just think he's handsome? Whatever. We're not going to dwell on. A lone maggot falls off Cordelia just as Giles asks about their Taraka encounter. I think the maggots might actually be harmless little mealworms, but you know, whatever.
Slammed into a biology textbook. LOL.
Buffy zings Xander with a "What's with you and bugs?" and this wasn't a praying mantis. Good callback.
So many callbacks in this episode.
I like that they do little callbacks like that. For the first time, Buffy sort of acknowledges Kendra's help. Giles flusters around a bit, but he has the puzzle pieces. Drusilla's cure requires the presence of her maker, then a new moon at a church. So it comes out to the rest of the group that Angel is, in fact, Drusilla's maker. Xander makes a joke about getting major neck, and Willow punches his arm. It's like everyone's having enough of his comments. Like Giles face palms him, and Willow hits him. So we're getting sick of your shit, Xander. I just realized that my next note is this ritual will kill Angel. It's like that one with the big scissors over the crab. Cut the crab's head off. This will kill the crab. This ritual will kill Angel.
kill Jester.
She's shite. If anybody hasn't seen Falconhoof from Lemmy's show and you like D&D, go watch it. You will not be sorry. Xander says, Angel's our friend, except I don't like him.
I don't even care. I laugh every single time. This is genuinely a funny comment.
That's one of the funniest things he said.
Yeah,
period.
exactly. Yeah.
Kendra agrees to help. Spike is going down. He's messed with the wrong girlfriend. At the vampire lord, Drusilla is giving Angel a little holy water acid bath.
Why does she have that?
Must have sent out special for it.
Or is it because it's in this like special glass bottle in this? I'm like, I couldn't help but think, do they just have that on hand in the bedroom, which I'm now calling Drew's dungeon?
This is not a line of questioning I want to go down. The way Drusilla tells it, he deserves it and worse, and while I am not rooting for her, I do believe it. At the library, while doing the research that is required of every Buffy episode, Will and Giles discover that there are 43 churches in town, which seems excessive. Cordelia gets her shower and comes back to help out. So yeah, you know what? She's on the team and she wants to be. She keeps showing up, and she did here too. She could have went home. She didn't. The Slayers are gearing up and sharpening blades in what I assume is Giles' office, and despite professing to be a weapons expert, Kendra shoots a crossbow bolt through an IKEA lamp, and I'm like, why the fuck was that thing even cocked?
Killed the bad lamp.
So when this is all over, Buffy's thinking pineapple pizza. Oh no, she's one of those. In a teen movie from the Ringwald area, so nice 80s reference, although at the time it practically still was the 80s.
Fair, it was almost the 2000s at this point. This is 1997.
I know, maybe we're in the future now, so my perspective is skewed, but anything before 2000 was good. It was better. Xander and Cordelia find info on Maggot Man Fister, it's like a wrestling name, and how to kill him. He has to be in his buggy forms, which he condescendingly explains to Cordelia, and their bickering draws a glasses off head palm from Giles, and I know he's thinking these goddamn teenagers.
Why does Buffy have to have friends? Why can't she just have Willow?
Giles is going to find a way to rub Xander out on a mission if he doesn't shut up. It'd be pretty easy. He had a stake in his head. I don't know what happened. At this point, Kendra references how, like we said before, her parents actually gave her to the Watcher, so they were all dedicated. But mind you, Buffy, she doesn't have any family, but mind you, Buffy doesn't have any family either, what with her mother off in the French Riviera with her 90-day fiance boyfriend.
We found the multiverse Jedi, everybody.
It's going to be harder and harder to come up with what her mom's doing out of town, but I'm going to do my best. So they clearly have very different Slayer philosophies. Buffy thinks her improvisation would beat Kendra's discipline in the end, and they get a little head buddy about it. I can't argue with Buffy here because her improvising has always been fucking top notch. Xander enters for a second, and it's not lost on me that they are reminded of creepy Mocha Joe when he walks in, the bartender, Willie. So I'm hoping they go to kick his ass. Spike is eager to get on with the show, and Angel plays them against each other a little bit, making it like he knows her better than Spike does, and Spike's jealousy really rears up here. His jealousy spikes, if you will. You're not the only one who can do puns.
Thank you.
I hate myself.
You're almost
Show
there.
myself out. Jump out the window. Angel antagonizes him more, and Spike nearly stakes him, but this was clearly the plan. He was going to throw himself on the stake, so to speak, to fuck up the plan. But Spike's like,
Didn't say the magic word.
I didn't mean that to be a Jurassic Park reference, but it really works.
It does.
I'm not going to stake you.
Jeff Goldblum is a watcher.
Oh my god, I would watch the shit out of that.
100%.
At Willie's bar, Buffy's roughing him up, and Kendra says, "Just hit him, Buffy." I'm like, yeah, just hit him, Buffy. Maybe I did hear some important details, says Mocha Joe. Kendra wants to go back to her watcher, buy the book. Buffy says, "Go now," following her emotions once again, illustrating the fundamental differences between these Slayers. But Angel could die. Kendra, he's a vampire. He should die. Ouch. She's not wrong.
Not wrong.
Okay, Mocha Joe, Willie the bartender, leads Buffy straight into a trap at the church. This is not the first time she's blindly stumbled into a trap, and into the hands of the Taraka assassins. Spike's got his vamp face on. I guess vampires on holy ground isn't much of an issue in this. Angel still seems too weak to fight back, which again seems a bit much from sun sickness, but I guess the holy water slowed him down, but he still seems way too weak here, especially being older than both of these vampires. Like, he made them both, right? So, like...
Yeah. It doesn't really ever become a plot point, so I guess I can bring it up. Drusilla! You find out Drusilla actually sire Spike? That's a thing later on. Yeah, I guess he had the sun sickness, which I'm surprised that bothered him as much as it did, considering how much they're in the sun. Like, even through in Drew's dungeon, it looked like there were sun kind of shining down on them. But he was tortured all day, so I guess I'll just give him that.
So I thought the ritual would be a long, drawn-out thing, but like to the end of the episode, but nope, Spike just does it. He drives a dagger through both Drusilla and Angel's hands. There's bright magic light, and let them come to a simmering boil and remove to a low flame, as Spike puts it. Again, great, he's got way with words, this guy. Willie and the Order of Taraka barge into the church. Spike is pissed that he brought the Slayer here, of all places. He wanted her dead, not here. And Buffy sees Angel up at the front as the ritual is going on. Mocha Joe talks too fast. I hope somebody kills him. I made that note specifically. You're talking too fast, Willie. You're driving me nuts. Buffy is about to get shot. Kendra Mortal Kombats her way in, and they punch out Spike. 2 Slayers, no waiting. A scrap breaks out, and in a badass moment, Giles fucking crossbows the big goon zombie assassin guy. I was impressed.
Yeah.
Everyone gets in on this fight. Spike is fighting Kendra. Buffy's fighting Patrice the fake cop with her fucking Assassin Creed knives. And Giles is tangling with another goon and punches him in the face. And even Willow gets in on it.
Willow gets a staking in.
Yeah. Xander, brackets, and Cordelia calls out Mr. Fister. And they lure him to go into bug form and to go under the door, and they start stomping. And then a jar of adhesive falls into shot. And I was like, okay, very clever. So long, Mr. Fister. Spike doesn't seem to be doing so hot in this fight, but he does grab Mocha Joe and has no time to kill him as Buffy is trying to stop the ritual, but he gives Buffy a mighty backhand in what might be his only good shot in this whole fight.
They switched partway through this fight so that Buffy's fighting Spike. I'm curious on your opinion as to why Buffy asked Kendra to switch. I mean, I guess just for cinematography, but...
Change up the fight, throw him off balance, I guess. I don't know. I'm not doing too well. Let's switch. But Kendra was doing well. She was beating the shit out of the Spike pretty good. Afterwards, Willow's dusting Giles's tweed suit off, which I thought was a nice little detail. Kendra defeats Knife Arms for cutting her favorite and only shirt, and then it looked like she used a little burst of Slayer speed. If my eyes didn't trick me there, it looked like she did. Spike starts a fire, then pulls Drusilla away, hoping the ritual is long enough, and he flees with her, but Buffy, proving her resourcefulness yet again, swings like an incense burner thing on a chain and fucking flings it into the back of Spike's head, and he goes down. He gives her one of these.
Dong.
And it brings half the goddamn house down, no pun intended. So everyone gets out, they save Angel, and the bad guys, they just apparently disappear. We'll come back to that. But yeah, that was as good as a kick in the face for me. That was the thing in the back of the head. Fuck, that was great. The opening shot back at the school in the next scene, all the chips are upside down in the vending machine. Was that a way to avoid copyright or something? Like,
the still open school. Didn't they just have a shooting?
Just another day in Sunnydale.
Everybody needs grief counseling in this town.
Yeah. Seth Green bumps into Willow. He's recovering from his arm gunshot. Willow thanks him. Flirts with her, but also just rambles about animal cookies. But they do seem to be starting a little connection there.
He says a line at one point that says, "All monkeys are French."
The only animals that wear the clothes.
This line is used in a novelization side story of Buffy in high school. And there's a point it's called the Gatekeeper Trilogy. I think it was done by Nancy Holder and Christopher Golden. Oz has to prove himself to Willow that it's him at some point because there's a lot of stuff going on. And he actually uses the line, she's like, prove to me that it's you. And then he's silent for a moment. She's worried that he's gone. And then all of a sudden he goes, all monkeys are French. And so she knows to open the portal to let him through.
Oh, nice. Cordelia tries to ignore Xander, but they need to talk. The explanation for what happened between them, according to Cordelia, is that he is a perv. They blame each other for everything, of course.
I mean, she's not wrong.
No. They're back to hating each other, but then they kiss again, so like, here we fucking go. The big secret romance.
In front of an open door.
Yeah. Buffy gives Kendra a new shirt since the only one she owned was a club shirt that got knifed up. Kendra appears to survive the episode and is heading to the airport, and Buffy thanks her. Kendra is not going to tell her watcher that they saved Angel.
Sunnydale, the small town of Sunnydale, the one Starbucks Sunnydale, has an airport.
And an international one from the sound of it.
Yep.
I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it's like Halifax where they got to drive 30 miles out of town. And Kendra says to Buffy, you talk about slaying like it's a job, but it's who you are, which she ironically learned from Buffy. Buffy goes to hug her, and Kendra's like, no hugging, gets in her cab and leaves. So back at the church, we find out that Spike and Drusilla survived, and they climb out of the wreckage, and now she's got her vampire face on. Is this the first time we've seen this on her?
Yes.
I think it, okay, felt like it was. It looks like the ritual might have had at least some effect on her, and she lifts him up no problem. She's like, obviously, they make a show of showing that she's super strong and lifted him up. So now she's taking care of him. Mm-hmm. And that's where the episode ends. So yeah, even if the ritual wasn't 100% effective, it looks like Drusilla's been totally upgraded power-wise, and I am very much looking forward to seeing where that goes. So, some things I liked about this episode, and I must say this episode was one I've enjoyed all of these episodes, even the terrible ones, but this was one that I was like, it was a part 2, and so much had happened in the first one as far as world building and shaking things up. I was really excited to watch part 2. I was like, what's going to happen? And that's the first time I've really done that, so I like the show is what I guess I'm trying to say.
What's My Line part 1 and 2 kind of feels like a tonal shift. You really are starting to see Buffy. This is where Buffy starts hitting its groove. This is when it starts to get, it builds that momentum, and now you can kind of see what its potential is just from where it is now. If you think back to season 1, how far it's already come, it's kind of shocking.
Yeah. So yeah, great world building, great action. I liked how everyone sort of got in on the fights this time, but the stakes felt high enough that it made sense that all hands were on deck. So all of them, even Xander, did their part. I just realized I made a pun about the stakes being high. I like that Kendra survived. I really wasn't sure if she was going to or not, but the effect was the same. It helped Buffy sort of rededicate herself to it. So yeah, I like that Kendra survived. 2 Slayers makes it interesting, but I feel like they're not going to let that go on forever, so I'm not sure about Kendra's fate just yet. I feel like that's a loose end that somehow she'll be back, and I don't know if she's going to last till the end of the series is what I'm saying. No real dislikes this episode other than the visual of stomping on bugs. I didn't like that Mocha Joe, Willie escaped. Fuck you, Mocha Joe. So we'll probably see that asshole again. My final thought is that although I thought Kendra would have to die to sort of galvanize Buffy as a Slayer, I think that happened anyway, and maybe the next few shows we'll see her being a little more dedicated to the job. And my final thought is that it's amazing that Snyder managed to not track Buffy down in 2 entire episodes. That is the most amazing feat.
If you can dodge Principal Quark like you're dodging an unpaid Ferengi bill, you're doing pretty good. I have a fun fact that I referenced during the quick review that we did of the movie before we went into the unaired pilot. Mm-hmm. The actor, known as Seth Green, had his scene cut, but he is the only one to be in both the movie and the TV show.
Oh, interesting.
He was actually the vampire that turned the basketball player Grueler that Buffy ends up going after in the middle of a basketball game. That's who ends up turning him.
Oh, that is a fun fact.
Yeah. So he's I think he's uncredited, but it was only because his scene was cut, but he was in it.
Yeah, I guess that would have been very early in Seth Green's career, because the movie Buffy came out, early 90s?
Yes, 1993 or 2, something like that.
I was in high school at the time. I remember that much.
He was playing, his scene actually shows up in the novelization. I have a lot of Buffy books, everybody.
Yeah, oh yeah, I've seen the shelf.
A novelization of the movie. His character actually shows up in the novelization as this little nerd pipsqueak that the basketball player was picking on. So he picks on him in the middle of a park. And then the little dweeb, I guess, grins. And that's when he shows his vampire teeth. And that's when the scene cuts. So that's what would have happened in the movie.
Okay, cool.
I really enjoy Kendra. I always have. Accent aside, of course. I enjoy what this episode does is it really solidifies the Scooby Gang by even using their now referenced nickname. It becomes their solid name. Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty there for each other. I mean, like I said, even Cordelia, like they're sticking together through it all pretty good. Where any sane person would run screaming, but no, they're sticking together. They're working as a team. Well, I guess that's it for this 2-parter. Really enjoyed it. Although if I see that fucking Willie again,
stay tuned.
Shit.